So, another day, another dollar. And we have the updated lore of Mordekaiser. Now, before I go into this, and I have read this little mini bio, but I haven't read the story yet. I love the old Mordekaiser bio. I love the old story. I love almost everything about it. I love the fact that he was a mighty warlord who conquered everything, and on his dying moment, he stood on a mountain of corpses that was just so good. It was just so good, and he tricked everybody, and I love that. That was great. There's something I really, really hated about Mordekaiser's old bio. I hated the fact that he became a motherfucking coward. I hated the fact that he scrounged away all of his bones into a secret room, and he built the Immortal Bastion around his bones to protect him. I hated that. It didn't fit with anything else in Mordekaiser ever before, and it just made him bad. Now, here is the new bio. I'll tell you right now, I like it quite a bit. And it does go over a big problem that I have, which I'll stick like right here, and I'll stick below, that I had in my breakdown of the video that I did. It goes over it and does wonders. Also, something I just realized, right here, that's the claw he uses for his E, which looks badass. And yeah, that's badass. I like it. Now, we're going to go and read through this. I'm going to discuss a little bit, and then we'll read through the next part. Mordekaiser, the Iron Revenant. In a previous epoch, the fierce warlord Shang Uzal rampaged across the northern wildlands. Driven by a dark faith, he crushed every tribe and settlement in his path, forging an empire in blood and death. As his mortal life neared its end, he took great satisfaction in knowing that he had doubtless earned a seat at the gods' table in the glorious Hall of Bones for all eternity. Yet, when he died, he found no halls or glory awaiting him. Instead, Shan Uzal stood in an empty gray wasteland, shrouded by ethereal fog and plagued by discordant whispers. Occasionally, other lost souls drifted nearby, little more than ghostly shapes, wandering their own personal oblivion. Anger consumed Shan Uzal. Had his faith been false, or was his domination of the world simply not enough to grant him the immortality he craved? Surely this emptiness could not be all there was. Yet there seemed no end to it. He watched as lesser spirits slowly faded into the fog, unmade and lost to time. But Shan Uzal refused to fade. His will, tempered by rage and torment, held him together. Over time, the unknowable, disembodied whispering in that place crystallized into words he could almost comprehend. This, he learned, was Oknon, a profound tongue unspoken by any among the living. Slowly, a deceitful plan began to form in what was left of Shan Uzal's mind. He began to whisper temptations across the veil between realms, promising his indomitable strength to any who would dare listen. And sure enough, the day came when a coven of sorcerers resolved to bring Shan Uzal back from the dead. Lacking any flesh or bone, he spurred them to make him stronger than any mortal, binding his spirit form in dark metal plates wrought in the likeness of his old armor. So he rose, a hulking revenant of iron and hate. Those power-hungry sorcerers had hoped to use him as a weapon in their trivial wars. Instead, he slew them where they stood, their weapons and magic useless against them. In desperation, they screamed out his name to bind him, but to no avail, for Shan Uzal was no more. With an ethereal rumble, he spoke his spirit name in Oknon, Mordekaiser. Thus began his second conquest of the mortal realm. As before, his ambitions were great, only now empowered by necromantic sorceries he could never have previously imagined. From the fearful, dissipating souls of the sorcerers, Mordekaiser forged a weapon fit for an emperor of death, his brutal mace, Nightfall, and seized control of the army they had raised. To his foes, it seemed he cared only for massacre and destruction. Entire generations perished under his relentless campaigns. However, there was far more to Mordekaiser's plan. He raised the Immortal Bastion at the center of his empire. While most assumed it was merely a seat of power, some came to know the secret it held. Mordekaiser hungered for all the forbidden knowledge of spirits and death, and a true understanding of the realm, or realms, beyond. Such tyranny could only bring him enemies. The Iron Revenant was defeated, surprisingly, by an alliance of the Noxie tribes and betrayal from within his own inner circle. This hidden cabal managed to sever the anchors of his soul from his armor and sealed the empty iron shell away in a secret place. And so Mordekaiser was cast out of the material realm. However, unbeknownst to anyone, he had planned for this. Indeed, it was a pivotal part of his design. Damnation and deceit had carried him far, but he knew that a destiny far grander than the halls of bones awaited him. There, in a once empty wasteland, all those who died under his latest reign were waiting. Perverted by dark sorcery, their spirits would never fade. The strongest became his devout, eternal army, bound to his will. But even the weak were given purpose. From the subtle matter of their souls, Mordekaiser would forge a new empire. They would be the building blocks and mortar of his afterworld. Centuries have passed in Runeterra. Another empire has arisen around the Immortal Bastion. Mordekaiser's name is still whispered in fear and awe by those who study the old histories and remember unkindly by the few ancient souls who knew him. For them, the greatest terror would be for Mordekaiser to find his own way to return permanently. It is something they pray would not come to pass, for they know of no way to stop him. I love this. I love this. Oh, again, it brings back all the good parts. It brings back his warlord past, which is somewhere in the north, so I'm guessing Freljord maybe? But before Freljord was Freljord, he is ancient. He is an ancient creature. And I love how I love how it also ties back to some of his old stuff. How he was he was always there for his own torment, for his own anger that built him up. And again, another callback to the previous one, a coven of sorcerers. His own sorcerers that brought him back in the previous lore is back in this one, except it's changed so that it was more of a trickster, not trickster, more of a deceit in order for him to forge his own way. I love this. This is perfect. I'm a little disappointed that he didn't get his original mace back. That it wasn't the original mace from his from his conquest, but that's fine. That's just a personal choice on my end. But I love this. This is so good. I am very, very pleased. And now I understand why the guy in the video said this. How he was afterworld, he was dying. And this makes sense. This makes a lot of sense. I like this. I wish this was first, so I wouldn't have been so annoyed by that comment. I'm going to drink a little bit of tea. Okay, now let's go ahead and read the story. And, yes. But yeah, I also like the little callback, the Noxie. So that's the Noxie. So that is where Noxus came from. Oh, sorry. That's where Noxus came from, and I like that. I like that. Like that's a little callback to, or not callback, but a little bit of world building for the old Noxus. I like that. I like that a lot. And I also like how Mordekaiser has shifted from. I don't know if I like it, but it's interesting that Mordekaiser has shifted away from the Shadow Isles to Noxus. But it does make sense since he is of Noxus, not the Shadow Isles, so that makes sense. And the thing is, even in his very original bio, when he joined the league the first time, he stayed in Noxus. He stayed in the dark and sick areas of Noxus. So I like that that he is now officially a Noxian. But he's much more ancient than Noxus, if that makes sense. Let's go and read this story. Now, I haven't read this yet. This is a live reading, so I might be doing some reactions. Shadows of Damnation. The black mist coiled and twisted like a living creature as it rolled forward to encircle the isolated Greystone Castle. A massive armored figure walked within the darkness of the black mist. His heavy warplate gleamed like oil, and orbs of cruel witchfire burned within his horn helm. Love that. Okay, flat out, I love that because in a previous bio, his eyes were seen as witchfire. I love that. Okay. Grass withered underfoot as the armored revenants marched towards the castle's gatehouse. He could see movement on the walls. They knew death had come for them. His own name drifted on the wind, whispered in fear. Mordekaiser. Arrows sliced through the night. Several struck Mordekaiser, ricocheting from his armor. One sank into the gap between his helm and gorget, but his innoxiable approach did not slow. A heavy iron portcullis barred Mordekaiser's advance. The Revenant extended a gauntlet hand and making a wrenching motion in the air. The lattice ironwork screamed in protest as it was twisted out of shape before and hurled contemptuously aside. Damn it. Revealing the heavy oak gate beyond. And that's his E, which I do like how that went through. White hot warding runes burst to life upon the gate, forcing Mordekaiser back half a step. The black mist roiled around him, and it was possible now for the defenders to see other forms within it. Hateful, shadowy specters that hungered for living souls. Mordekaiser stepped forward, brandishing his immense spiked mace, Nightfall. A weapon of dark renown, thousands had fallen before it. With a powerful swing, he slammed the weapon into the oak gate. The runes exploded, Mordekaiser's dark sorcery overcoming the petty protective spells of his enemies. The gate smashed inwards, ripped off his hinges. Again, I like that. He is a one-man battering ram. And just all the power he has. I love that. The black mist flowed through the breach, Mordekaiser striding within it. The garrisoned soldiers and men-at-arms waited for him in the courtyard beyond. Weaklings all. His gaze swept over them and he sought a foe worthy of his attention. His undying gaze settled on a silver-clad knight that stepped out to meet him, sword drawn. Yes! Okay, I'm so glad that they brought him back. He is a completely non-named character, but he has been in several different stories, and I love that. I love that so much. I'm so glad they brought him back. But yeah, he was in a previous story where essentially a paladin knight defended his castle against Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser fights him one-on-one, kills and defeats the paladin, raises him up, and has him pretty much has him kill everyone else. And there's another one where he fights another knight, same sort of deal, and And but he's trying to get information. The paladin says pretty much, "Fuck you, Mordekaiser. I'll die." He's like, "You will." Breaks his neck, raises him, and then starts interrogating the spirit. I love that they brought that back. "Begone, Revenant, or I shall see you banished," said the knight. "This hamlet and its people are under my protection." Rising to this threat, a host of specters and translucent warriors manifest in the black mist behind their master. "This one's soul is mine," Mordekaiser said, holding the eager spirits at bay. His voice was deep, spherical, the timbre of death itself. Mordekaiser pointed, and a cone of malefic unlife burst towards the knight. The knight's armor shone brightly for a second, then returned to its normal, mundane form, leaving him completely unharmed by Mordekaiser's necromantic sorcery. "Damnation steel," sneered Mordekaiser. "It will not save you." He stepped forward and brought his spiked mace down upon the knight's skull. The strike was met with a two-handed parry, though the power of it forced the knight to his knees. Mordekaiser towered over him. Okay. That's badass. Again, this knight, who's completely nameless and always gets murdered by Mordekaiser, is a badass, and I love it. The knight spun away, avoiding nightfall as it swung towards him in a lethal arc. He sidestepped and sank his blade deep into Mordekaiser's side, biting through the bladed links and chain. To a living man, this would have been a mortal blow, but to the armored behemoth, it was nothing. Mordekaiser backhanded the knight across the side of his head, sending him reeling. The Iron Revenant stepped in to end the fight, but the knight turned aside his strike with exquisite skill and rammed the point of his blade into Mordekaiser's chest with all his strength and weight. With a wrench of metal, the blade punched through the breastplate above the heart. There was no resistance from within, as if the suit were hollow. Mordekaiser grabbed the knight by the throat in one giant hand and lifted him off the ground. Exactly what happened to the previous knight. "I'm so sorry, knight dude. You're a badass, but you suck." You thought you could protect these mortals," said Mordekaiser. "But no. He did it again! But know that it will be you who slays them." He squeezed, tightening the grip on the knight's throat. The mortal's feet kicked in the air. Mordekaiser watched closely, his eyes burning as the life drained from the knight. Finally, he dropped the lifeless corpse to the floor. Mordekaiser knelt and placed a hand upon the dead knight's chest. When the armored giant rose, he drew forth the shade of the dead warrior. The spirit of the knight looked around it, horror writ within its spectral eyes. "Now," commanded Mordekaiser, knowing that the shade was powerless to resist him, "kill them all." I love this. This is so good. So many callbacks to previous stories, but in a way that makes it so beautiful. And this just goes back to the Bible. I love this. This is so good. This is probably my favorite Mordekaiser story. Again, it has a lot of elements of the previous stories, but it was still so good. Okay. Alright, well that's it for this episode. Wow. I'm so hyped for this new Mordekaiser. I've been watching Void Boy's video of him playtesting it, and it looks so sweet. Alright, that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys later. Hey guys, this is Creator here. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. If you haven't subscribed, perhaps consider subscribing down below. And by the way, I also stream on Twitch. Link is in the description down below. It's also right here on the screen. And without further ado, let's get on to the video.